Recording in progress.
All right, so welcome back. Welcome. Let's go ahead and get you guys going here. Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Live Call. We have Rianka in the house. We have Ramona in the house. Hello, Ramona. Hello, Rocio. Hello, Pedro. Tara is here. Hello, hello. Okay. We've got Natalia. We've got Gus. We've got Rocio. All right. We've got Pedro, of course. We've got Caleb, Yuval, the two guys. We've got Jay, Emmanuel. We've got Svetlana. Simba is with us as well. Glad to have you guys today. Welcome to the REI live call. This is the call where we talk about how to get started, how to move things forward. And today we'll have a special guest a little bit later today here. She's going to be sharing about her business, what she's doing right now to win, and how you can learn more from her and get plugged in with her. So she'll be with us in just a little bit later. Let's talk about getting deals done. What is required of us? What can we do to create some advantage in our business? And so I'll open up the whiteboard in just a second. But first, let's get a mental frame set up here. So when I started this back in 2006, I didn't know how to raise money. I didn't know how to find deals. All I had was the desire that I wanted to get into real estate. Now, I didn't actually know why I wanted to get into real estate. And some of you are shaking your head. Other than I heard it was a better money-making vehicle, and it was more stable money-making vehicle. And so I figured I could create wealth with real estate from everything I had read. I'd never read a book that said real estate sucks. All the books I read said real estate is great. And I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and many other books that taught me that if you own real estate over the long term, you'll create wealth. Now, the how it created wealth was a little bit foggy to me. It wasn't super clear. But what I felt was if I own real estate, I've learned that real estate goes up in value with time. And so if I own real estate, all the value that was created from the appreciation in the market would be my value. And so let's kind of look at this here, going back a number of years ago, thinking about real estate. So what did I have here before I got started? I'm going to open up the whiteboard. Here we go. I absolutely had the desire to create some type of financial freedom. Now, I don't know what your view is or what your specific objective is, but for me, it was more or less to have financial freedom. And my description of that is to be able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want to do it with, and anytime. Okay, that was kind of my thing, regardless of price. And so I felt that was a pretty good description. I had heard that description somewhere along my journey. I like it, so I adopted it. If anybody agrees, you can put it in the chat. So I had the desire for financial freedom. I want to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, with whom I want to do it, anytime, regardless of the price. Like that to me is the ultimate financial freedom. I'm curious in the chat, if you're with me, tell me what your additional version would be. What am I missing? Well, how else would you describe your view of financial freedom? Go ahead and put that into the chat with me. All right. And so as I did this, I said, okay, well, what's next? I have the desire to do it. And I have a pretty, I have an okay idea of what I wanted to do, but I didn't have any specific numbers. And so in trying to do real estate at the beginning of my journey, I realized that if I didn't have any specific numbers or specific goals, I wouldn't have any clear out. And so if I didn't have any clear outcomes, then it was like, well, when am I going to get to enjoy these things? And so it went from a desire, and from a desire, I wanted to inspire myself to do what was required in order to succeed in this business. But I didn't actually have clarity about the steps. I didn't know what was required of me. I just knew that I had a desire. Anybody can relate to this? Like, yeah, I want to own real estate. I want to own more real estate, but I don't really know what the steps are. I don't know what to do. All I know is that I have to own real estate because the people around me who own it happen to be doing better than the people who don't. And so that became a pretty obvious thing for me. So then I said, okay, well, I'm inspiring myself to own more real estate. Now, I gave myself a clear goal. And I said, I want to be a millionaire by the age 30. Now, you're probably thinking, that's crazy. That's super young to be a millionaire. But when I made this goal, I was 19 years old. So if you think about it, I gave myself 11 years to achieve it. And so it wasn't like some next year goal. It was like I worked for the next 11 years to become a millionaire by 30 because I didn't know many other millionaires. Okay. And so to me, a millionaire, this is the what. What is a millionaire? What is a millionaire? It was this. It was having a net worth of $1 million. And so I had to first then figure out what is the definition of net worth, because that was one of the verbiage that I saw and I liked. And so it came back to this. A net worth is when you have assets that you own, like real estate. And let's just say you have $2 million of real estate value. Then you have liabilities. So, for example, that would be the mortgages, because the liabilities are not yours, meaning they're not of value to you. They're an obligation to you. And so if I had $1 million in liabilities, then I would have in equity the difference between the two, which would be $1 million. And so this is called being a net worth millionaire. And I thought that sounded pretty good. How many of you think that sounds pretty good and you like this idea? Right. So I said, okay, well, the first desire is to be a millionaire, because if I could be a millionaire, then it would help me create financial freedom. Well, the challenge with being a millionaire, guys, and some of you may have realized this as well, is that great. So now you have equity, but you still don't have cash flow, right? How many of you have experienced some version of this? It's like, awesome, I have equity, but I don't have cash flow. And so I still don't feel financial freedom because cash flow is the missing thing that's lacking. Yes. Okay, great. So then I thought, okay, well, I want to have this business. I want to be a millionaire. I want to inspire myself. I have 11 years to hit my goal, but then I also want to have the financial freedom and the what, when, whom, anytime. This anytime became a really big problem for me. Any of you, this is your problem. It's like you have some money, but you don't necessarily have time. It's not any time. And I can't really do what I want when I want to do it. And so I'm stuck on the anytime part of it because it takes, it takes money plus time to equal freedom. So I said, okay, well, then I'm going to need some cash flow. And so the next thing became for me, well, how much cash flow do I need to live my dream lifestyle, to do the things I want to do? I had to become financially intelligent. And so part of my financial journey that was the problem was that it was the realization that even though I wanted to have more resources, I didn't understand how money works, and I didn't really understand what to do with it. Like, if I have money, then what? Do I grow it? Do I spend it? Do I save it? Like, what do I do with the money that I have? Anybody ever have this? Like, okay, I want money. And then you imagine getting the money. And then you're like, now what do I do? Do I just buy more stuff? Do I waste it? Do I save it? Do I invest all of it and enjoy none of it? It's a whole new level of question. I was like, what now? So it was great to have the desire to have money. It was great to be a net worth millionaire. And then I was like, and then what do I do? Like, I would be richer in my bank account than I am in my mindset. And so I don't really understand what to do with all this newfound money. And that's a whole different problem. So then I had to understand how money actually worked. And so I had to create for myself, and I hope this is helping you, I had to create what's called a thesis, like a financial thesis. And so a thesis is like what we do with money. And so I had to start thinking about this. What type of lifestyle do I want to live? And what type of financial relationship do I have? What type of relationship do I have with money? Okay. Am I a spender? Anybody know people who are spenders? I certainly do. Like, they have $1, they spend $2. It doesn't matter how many dollars they have. They spend twice as what they have. Anybody know people like this? It's like always perpetually broke. You have money, it's gone. All right. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I looked at the spender lifestyle and I thought, well, it's interesting, but to me, I thought being a spender was stressful. Like, okay, the fear of not having money versus the excitement of having new stuff didn't seem to weigh out the pros and cons. Anybody with me? It's like, if you spend all your money and then have no money, was it really worth the headache of getting some money? I don't know. I don't think so. I think, like, for me, I said, well, being a spender isn't really it because it's stressful. So I was like, maybe I'll be a saver. And so I know people who are savers. Anybody know people who are savers? Like, they just save so much of their money. I said, do I want to be a saver? And so if being a spender is stressful, what is the adjective to describe being a saver? Anybody want to know? It's boring. It's boring as hell. Like, you save money and then you become boring. You become a financial prude. There's nothing to talk about because you spend no money. And so it's like, do you want to go for a coffee? No, I'm making it at home. Boring. Do you want to go for dinner? No, I make my own dinner. Boring. Do you want to go on vacation? No, I'll play in my backyard. Boring. Do you want to buy a new car? No, I take the bus. Boring. And I was like, I don't want to be a saver. That sounds like a boring lifestyle. Anybody know people like this? It's like, you are the most boring human alive. All you do is you save your money. And so you have some, but like, I'd rather not have it than just have it and save it. Like, I'd rather be fun than boring. And so I don't want to be stressed and I don't want to be boring. And so now I'm trying to figure out what kind of financial relationship do I want to have? So I got a spender, I got a saver. All right. Pretty interesting. I say, so then what's the in between? What's next? All right. How about the investor? Okay. Then I was like, maybe I want to be an investor. And then I thought, okay, well, what's the adjective that describes the investor? You know, this is a person who takes all of their capital and they invest, right? And I'm like, that's kind of an interesting idea. So your investments start to grow. But do you know people who invest absolutely everything they make? You know anybody like that? Okay. Anybody like that? You know people who invest? Anybody? Yeah? All right. Well, and then I was like, I'll be an investor. And then I thought, what's the adjective that describes investor? I know what it is. It's judgmental. And so whenever somebody is an investor and somebody is not an investor, the investor judges everybody who's not an investor. So it's like, you're poor with money. You spend some on yourself. How dare you buy your daughter a new t-shirt? She already had 3 t-shirts. Why did she need a 4th t-shirt? And then you're like, oh, you save your money? That's because you're scared of everything. You got to invest. And then you invest. And then the problem with being an investor is eventually that becomes boring too. And so you go from being an investor to being the next thing, which is called the speculator. And a speculator has another fancy word, and it's called a gambler. And so now all of a sudden you take all of your hard-earned money that you've been investing, and then you have so much money to invest, you start investing in things you don't understand. And so all of a sudden you go to being an investor in things that you don't understand. And so now you go from being the investor gambler, okay, to being what? You're basically back to being the spender. The only difference is you spent your money on stuff you can't do anything with. And so at least the spender has a car. At least the spender eats steak. You just have a bunch of financial mistakes. That's your comfort. It's like, well, I own some stock in that company. I guess that went to zero. I bought some of that multi-level marketing. I guess that went to zero. I went ahead and invested in my buddy's grass cutting AI company where the AI cuts the lawn for you. That never happened and that went to zero. And every other scam under the sun. And so the investor becomes judgmental. They become the speculator and then they participate in scams. Okay. You know who doesn't participate in scams? The saver. You know why? Because they never invest in anything. And so now they're the entitled ones and they go, well, guess what? At least I'm boring, but I didn't get scammed. Sweet. Awesome dinner party. Right. And then you got the spender was like, I'm living for today. You're boring and you're a scam and I have a new Ferrari and whatever. Right. So you got the spender, the saver, the investor. Does this ring a bell to anybody? Cool. And then I thought, all of these kind of suck, right? Like if you're going to do all of them all the time, then all of them are going to suck because one thing without the other thing is not fun. I realized along the way, I wanted to spend some money. Anybody like me? Like I don't want to eat cheap sushi. I just don't want to do it. If the fish is funny, it doesn't go in my tummy. That's my new rule. You know, like cheap sushi smells weird. You get it from the grocery store. It's like the rice is cold and hard, and then it doesn't make sense anymore. It's no longer sushi, right? It's slushy. It's just weird. You got this sticky sushi substance that's not sushi. It's like, I don't want to do that. I want to eat sushi. And you know what I like is 2 gourmet things in the same meal. I realized my favorite meal as an adult is steak, ribeye, and sushi together. I don't know any restaurant that makes it, and so I have to make it, right, Rocio? I get a nice ribeye, and then I get a whole bunch of sushi, and then I put it all together, and I have stushi. Stushi is steak plus sushi. It's amazing, or it sounds better than swake. And so stushi is my favorite combination. It's steak plus sushi. Okay, it's like, delicious, protein, and a whole bunch of BS. I don't know what's in there. It's amazing. Cool. And so being the saver is also interesting because, hey, man, I don't want to be stressed about money forever. Like, I'd have to have some resources in the bank. And then being an investor is cool because I do want to own a bunch of things that go up in value. But by the same time, I want to have some intelligence. So I started developing a financial relationship, and I said, okay, well, all right, if I want to be financially intelligent, then I started creating my thesis, and my thesis started to look like this. My thesis said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to focus on creating a business because a business creates profit. And I realized early on that if I made profit, I could technically have all three. I could spend some, I could save some, I could invest some. The difference between income and profit is that income typically is something that's a direct relation from your hourly work. And so 1 hour equals income. And that's a thing. But profit is different than income. Profit means that it's not directly tied to your hourly wage, but it's directly tied to your economic opportunity. So economic opportunity or economic output is profit. And so I asked myself, I don't want to spend a lot of time and make a monthly income. So how do I increase my profits? And I said, well, I'd have to increase my economic opportunity. And so I said, how do I turn real estate into a business? Real estate as a business. And I said, okay, well, then I started evaluating what is a business. And that brought me to the next part of my growth when I was in my early 20s. I said, well, a business is a system. It's as simple as that. And it's a system based on some fundamental things. It's based on, number one, grabbing leads. And leads are called marketing. Cool. So then I'm like, all right, that's one thing I have to do to have a system. The second thing I have to do is I have to convert leads, and that's called sales. Cool. And then the third thing I have to do is fulfill whatever was promised, and then that's called operations. And then I want to scale that, and the only way to scale it is based on understanding the financial levers. And so financial levers or financials are how you scale. And so I said, okay, I can have the best of all worlds. I can be a spender, saver, and investor if I create my profit. And the way to create my profit was to understand how to build a business in the field of real estate. I also realized something else. I said, well, if I build a business, and what should my business do? And I said, well, my business should have the greatest leverage activity. Like, I should be able to generate as much profit as I humanly can with my business. And so if my purpose is to create profit, then I ask the inevitable question that all of you will likely ask. If my job is to create profit, then what activity do I do? And they brought me right back to my first thing. If I want to create financial freedom, which was my goal, then the question is, what activity do I do in order to be able to create that type of freedom? Like, I don't have a college degree. Anybody like me? I went to college and realized it sucked. All right. I also realized I sucked. I went to college and I was not interested in doing all of the work. Like, I went to music school and they said, you have to practice trumpet 4 hours a day. Let me tell you, nobody wants to practice trumpet 4 hours a day. Okay. At some point, you just become tone deaf to the trumpet. Like, 1 hour a day is cool. Play a couple scales is fine. But 4 hours a day was kind of wild. Okay. Let me know in the chat. What did you go to school for? And what did you have to practice 4 hours a day? I'm just curious. All right. Now that I think about it, I should have gone to sushi making school because I would have saved a lot of money making my own sushi, because I make my own steak and it's quite good. If anybody knows how to make sushi, I would love some lessons, because every time I make it, it just looks like a big ball of rice. And so it doesn't look like how theirs looks like. Okay. Baked sushi, mechanical engineering. All right. And so the sciences, memorizing chemical formulas. Sounds exciting. Nursing. All right. Awesome. I'll leave it up to Mel for the most exciting career path. All right. All right. E equals MC. Boring. All right. And so I didn't do well in school because I didn't want to study for 4 hours a day and I wasn't interested. But I said, okay, I think if I figure out what activity, then I can create profit and I can have what I want. And then I read a book that was very much in alignment to this whole principle. And the book I read was called The 4-Hour Work Week. Has anybody read it? It was quite a good book. And here's what the book basically said. This guy, Tim Ferriss, more or less walked around every day for like 2 to 3 hours a day and just was like walking around the neighborhood, walking his dog and stuff. And he basically asked the question, if I could only do one thing today, one thing, what's the one thing I would do that would create the most impact? And so I liked that. One thing with the most impact. And so I liked it because it's the same reason I like real estate. And the word is called leverage. I like to do things that create a lot of leverage. And so I'm looking for high leverage activities. And so Tim Ferriss would walk around with this dog all day and he would say, what's the one thing I can do to create leverage? What is the thing? And so ahead of his time, Tim Ferriss figured out that there was the thing that a principle that he shared in the book is called the one big domino. And this really resonated with me. One big domino. And so the one big domino means that if I have a series of things to do every day, let's just say in your business, and you had to go and you have to do all of these things, this one and 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 this one. You have to do all these things. This was the question that Tim proposed in the book. He said, what's the one big domino that if I knock that over, it will knock over the remaining dominoes? What is the one thing I could do today that would take care of all these other little dominoes? And so this became the prevailing thing in my real estate business. I started asking, what is the big domino? What is the thing I could do? And then so later, I came to understand this big domino in another framing called the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle. I don't think that's how you spell it. Pareto. Somebody can. There we go. Pareto principle. Okay, I can't spell it. We're just going to call it Pedro's principle for lack of better words. It's now Pedro's principle. All right. Everybody wants a Pedro. It's the Pedro principle. There we go. So Pedro's principle, sorry, Pareto, you had your chance. It's now Pedro's era. You Italian economist guy, we don't care anymore. We're now going to go with Pedro's principle. And so Pedro's principle is going to be the 80-20 rule, which I really like, is back to leverage. And here's what it basically says. It says that 20% of your activities, they deliver 80% of your outcomes. And so when we think about a business, and this is everywhere, the Pareto principle or Pedro's principle, 80-20 rule applies in a lot of different places. But in your finances, this kind of is the same thing. So the idea is that there's a small percent of activities that will drive the bulk of your outcomes. If my outcome in business was to create financial freedom, then I said to myself, what is the 80-20 rule? What's the big domino that I have to knock down? I'm giving you a series of books consolidated into one lesson plan. Okay. And I said, what is this thing that I have to do every day? And so there has to be something, but in order for it to be the 20%, it has to be the most valuable. And so I've learned what that is over the years to create the most impact. It's I want financial freedom. And so I said, okay, well, what creates the most amount of financial freedom? Well, so it's high. This is what I've discovered. It is high leverage skills in direct relation to a high leverage opportunity. And so my lawyer used to say this thing. He used to say that opportunity, the definition, equals the skills plus the chance. And so I said, okay, well, what's the deal in real estate? Apparently, in real estate, houses are being listed every single day for sale. There's houses being listed, the market goes up, the market goes down. And so as the market does this and this, there are chances every single day, there are listings every single day that hit the market. Okay, hit the market, hit the market, hit the market, hit the market. There's properties that hit the market all the time. If I had the skills to negotiate the best possible deals, well, then I would be creating an opportunity. So the reframe in my mind was this: you don't find good deals, you create them. You don't find great deals, you create great deals. And I would also argue the same way. A person with no skills miss great deals. And so I would say that we are missing more deals than we are creating. That's why you may feel an opportunity scarcity. Well, Ben, there's no deals out there. No, you just don't have the skills. And so your view of the marketplace is there are no deals because you don't have the skills to capitalize on the properties that are already listed. And so then I took this a step further. I said, okay, so I decided to go ahead and build the skills. And so from 2006, I bought my first house in 2006. And then I bought the second house 1 year later in 2007. And then I bought the third house in 2008. And so I had 3 houses. I had 3 duplexes at the time. And then I bought another one in 2009. And so I didn't, I was trying to grow in my skill set. This 2009 one was very important to me because why? Because as soon as I saw this property listed in September of 2009, my family and I decided to go to Mexico for a vacation. And so it was really interesting because it was September. We went to Mexico because, the all-inclusives are cheaper in September, right? And so you go to the all-inclusive in Mexico in September because it's the cheapest season. Like, I don't know about you guys, but if it's hurricane season, I'm going. Like, you give me the worst season, I'm on the way. The tickets are like $200. Why wouldn't I go, right? I'm not going to go in like May. May's stupid. May's where all the rich people go. I'm going to go in September, right? If hurricane's coming, I'm on the way. So 2009, I went down there in the cheap season and I bought one house. That house forced me to come back at Christmas, more or less. And I had to renovate that house and I had to figure out how to renovate it, turn it over, rent the house within a very short period of time. And because of that experience in 2009, the next year I bought 8 properties. You see, once I bought the first one, all of a sudden, my opportunities started to happen everywhere. And so because my skills grew in 2009 on this one transaction, I learned a lot in this one deal. This one deal forced me to hire. This one deal forced me to raise money, completely non-bank financing because there's no bank financing available. This one deal taught me how to rent out properties with like 2 weeks, more or less. This deal taught me how to renovate because I didn't know. I didn't really know. The bathroom was falling apart in this house. And so I called my buddy John and I said, hey, buddy John, do you know how to do framing? He's like, yeah, I know how to do framing. He came over, knocked out the whole room, just ripped it all apart. And I was like, now what? He's like, I just know how to do the demo. I was like, that's not framing, that's demo. And so I could have Googled that. And so now Shelly had to learn how to put it all back together. And I'll tell you, by the time this thing was done, it was not pretty. You know how tiles are supposed to go like this, like really nice and clean like that? Yeah, my tiles were like this, Shelly. And then my grout line was like that. And then nobody cared. Okay, I had grout on the toilet. Like, you ever get grout on the toilet from the tiles from the shower? That's wild, Like, you shouldn't have grout on the toilet. Definitely not from the shower. Caleb Komet has done it, but he doesn't do it often. Right. And so one house taught me this valuable lesson. Then I had 8 houses. And so the skills became more obvious. And I said, okay, what's the next skill set? Because here's what happens as I started renovating houses. Well, all of a sudden, I was spending all my time again. And so spending all this time was not giving me financial freedom. So in about 2010, I started hiring. That was, how long ago was that? 16 years ago. Okay. 2010. I found another Pareto principle in 2010, and that was hiring people. And so I would then figure out what is the 20% in that. And the 20% in that was to learn how to manage people. Okay. And by 2014, we had about 8 employees. and they were renovating houses, and life was awesome. Okay. 2013, we launched our mortgage business. And so we started selling properties with mortgages. And so the theme for me for the last, since I started in 2006, which is now 20 years ago, was this. If I constantly focus on the big domino, if I constantly focus on the most impactful thing I can do, then I get to have this financial freedom. Now, did I become a millionaire at 30? Well, no, I failed. I was 31 years old when I became a millionaire. And so I'm sorry to report, it took me an extra year. I was a failure. I have failed before. I was a huge failure in my family. But then I became a millionaire the next year. In fact, not only did I hit the goal, but I also overshot the goal by about 200 grand that year. So here's the life lessons we've learned along the way. We've learned that if we have a desire, that desire, in my opinion, needs to start being translated into the language of business, which is very clear, specific outcomes with specific deadlines. I'm of the personality type that I just want it done because I started as a music school guy. And so I wanted to create a life where I can just play music. In fact, just before this call, I spent 2 hours with one of my music writers and we just made a banger. If you're not musically inclined, a banger means it's a great song. Okay. It's not mashed potatoes. We made a banger. It was awesome. Very, very cool song. It's going to be bumping. If you're not cool, bumping means good. All right. Banger is good. Bumping is good. All right. And so now you're learning some music vocabulary. And so we're having some fun making music. And, it's been a blast. So here's my conclusion of this kind of talk, or where I want to go with this next, is when you build a business, the business itself will create profit. In order for you to have a successful business, you have to ask the question, what skill is the business going to rely on you for? Okay, so you have to develop some mastery of some skill. And then what is the 80% of things that has to happen, but it shouldn't happen by you? And so it's hiring, it's delegating, it's outsourcing, it's deleting. And there are things that have to happen that, frankly, I believe that you shouldn't spend the next 5 years of your life learning how to master. But I would say that the overarching theme has been, what is my highest and best skill today? And where should my time go today? If you want to master time, this is the paradox. First, if you don't have money, money is the most important thing. And so you need some money. Then eventually when you have some money, because you become a master in getting the money, then you run out of time. And so then you need time. Okay. And then once you have money and time, then you can have true financial freedom, but it doesn't happen until that happens. Okay. So it's the skills, it's the clarity, it's the outcomes, and it's learning how to live in the Pedro principle, 80-20 rule. Okay. Now, for many of us who are brand new, we're back here in the day. We're back here how I started. Many of you are trying to reach $1 million goal. And so if you're trying to reach $1 million goal, I would say that that goal is a bigger goal, and it's important, and it's more important than my next deal. My next deal should be on a pathway to the I want to become a millionaire in real estate. And the reason it should be on the same linear path is because we want to create activities in our world that are in direct alignment with the outcomes that we want. If you do a deal today and you go find a property and you buy it and you use all your own credit, and perhaps it's not a great deal, it's not actually in alignment with financial freedom. It's just buying one property. This is a really important part of your business, is what are these little dominoes that are actually in alignment to where you're headed? And then what is the big domino that solves the little dominoes? For example, one big domino could be, Ben, I'm going to get a coach. Many of you have a coach because you need clarity and direction of how to get to where you want to get. And so the other domino could be, Ben, I have to actually get leads. And so I have to follow a proven marketing system, because otherwise I'm just kind of randomly looking at properties and I'm not being strategic with my time. Ben, I have to optimize my ability to sell. If you're going to buy real estate from owners or from realtors, The question is, do you have the conviction and the ability to close the transaction or not? So these are really specific, bigger dominoes that will help you with other dominoes. The other one could be technology. You'll say, hey, I want to use a proven system for getting leads, for messaging people, for growing my business, for hiring, which, by the way, another domino is hiring. I think business is better when you have other people involved. When you don't have other people involved, it's going to be difficult for you to scale and grow because a business is going to be a system that requires these things: leads, conversion, fulfillment, and scalability. So I'll ask you the same questions that my mentor has asked me over the years, and this will probably change in a few months for you. But the question to ask yourself today is this: what do you want? You should write that down. What exactly do you want? Number 2, be specific. What do you want? Be specific, which means by when and how much. Another important lesson over the years has been this: how you make the money is almost more important than how much money you make. For example, you could run around all day by yourself being completely stressed out in this business and make $1 million, or you can employ 3 people and they can run around all day and you can manage them and also make $1 million. How you do the work is almost more important as what outcomes you have, because the quality of life, I think, is quite important in this business. So what do you want? Be specific. By when? How much do you want? How much do you want? Okay. And then here's the other question he would ask me all the time. He would say, what are you willing to sacrifice? Another way to say that is, what price are you willing to pay? For me, it was my time. For me, it was my ego. So I wear the humble hat, guys, because I think it's a really good operating system. There's a lot of stuff I know, and there's a lot of stuff I don't know. If I encounter somebody who knows what I don't know, then I'll lower my ego and I will ask better questions so that I can learn, because I believe that if my goal is financial freedom, I cannot allow my own ignorance to be the thing that keeps me from financial freedom. And so if I meet somebody who knows something I don't know, I become a student, which is what the humble thing means. I don't wear a hat that says hungry because the hungry part comes easy. Okay. I'm an immigrant. We're all hungry. We all want to win. We all want to compete. We all want to succeed. And so that part comes easy. The humble part comes hard because I often want to elevate my own ego or my own status. And so I think this has been a really interesting part from the standpoint of this. One of my mentors used to say, you don't know what you don't know. That's a huge statement. And so if you don't know what you don't know, then I guess the better questions around the same topic are this: do you want to know? Do you want to know what you don't know? Let's give an example of that. When I started buying real estate, I started buying from realtors. And yes, I bought my first deal off market. That was a happenstance. I didn't know any other way, but I kind of figured it out. And what that means is I went to a local meetup group with a guy and he said, I have a house for sale. And I said, well, I want to buy a house. And he said, well, I have one for sale. I'll sell it to you. And I ended up buying my first house privately from a guy at the local meetup group. I didn't know to look online. And I didn't really know how to go find a deal or talk to realtors or any of that stuff. And so I just bought the first kind of available thing that was in front of me. But over the years, what I've come to learn is that there is a completely different way for finding opportunities. And part of it is around this knowledge idea. In order for me to have access to the most amount of leads, I have to actually see the entire market, not just a small part of it. And so it kind of works like this. If I hire a realtor, I only see the listings they have available, and I only see the market through their lens, through their eyes. Okay. If I work with all the realtors at the same time, then I see everything they see Okay. This kind of looks like a finger and a bunch of toes. That's a weird toe. It's got 6 toes. That's not good. But if I work with all the realtors, I get to see all the stuff at the same time. If I work with one realtor, I only see what they see at one time. And so I've learned to say, you don't know what you don't know, but do you want to actually know what you don't know? For example, seeing the whole market. Here's the next part. What price do you want to pay to know? It's kind of an interesting question because the price oftentimes can be financial, like somebody has to actually teach you what to do. And that takes time and energy to teach you because unfortunately, getting great deals is not just you're not going to master anything in a one-day course. It's a skill like everything else. It requires practice. It requires precision. It requires repetition. It requires accountability. The other way to pay the price is this, your own personal beliefs. Like oftentimes, guys, I just thought at the beginning, just like many of you, I had to go to the bank. The bank had to approve me, and the bank had to accept me into their financing program. And so what I didn't realize at the beginning, because I didn't know what I didn't know, was that I thought the bank was like, it was the main thing. The bank was the best answer. And so the bank financing to me at the beginning was like the primary thing. I didn't realize because nobody taught me that instead of bank financing, there's other options. There is seller financing. Nobody taught me that at the beginning. Also, nobody taught me about the other big one, which is what I use every day, private financing. And so this is private individuals funding mortgages. At the beginning, I only knew about bank financing. And so it's the limited perspective we have is going to limit the business growth. That's the case. So seller financing, private financing, bank financing. So these are topics that I think it's very important that we understand. And then once we understand it, the question is, what price do we want to pay? Like, do we actually want to, here's the other one. Do we actually want to spend the energy to do the things required in order to have this original freedom? Okay. Because for me, as you guys know, this was really my clear outcome, is to do the things at any time, anywhere, regardless of the cost. And so for me, I could tell you that I'm willing to know what I don't know. I'm willing to learn the things I don't understand. I'm willing to create massive goals that are probably going to scare most people because I personally do not want to spend 20 years, 30 years working in circles when I could just get the outcome ASAP. So let's kind of conclude this session here. If you want to really succeed, then you should be willing to have independent thinking and determine what is going to be your relationship with money. Are you going to be a master of money? Are you going to let it rob you of your joy? Are you going to be a spender, saver, investor? Are you going to create profits? And to create profits means that you actually have to follow the business protocol. And so business is all about data, not drama. Business is about marketing, sales, ops, and finance. And so there's a language to business and there's a system to business. And I have to learn it and respect it and do it if I want to create genuine profits. I have to learn these things. I have to learn lead gen. I have to learn conversion. I have to learn fulfillment. And then I have to learn financial reporting. Like, these are the 4 categories of things that will help you actually create the profit that you want. Once I have a basic idea, then I'm always creating leverage. And so my question is, what coach do I need? What training am I missing? What skill deficit do I not have? What employee am I missing? What financial leverage did I not create? And business becomes a series of professional problem solving. That's kind of what this is. And so if I'm going to be a professional problem solver, number one, I got to bring a great attitude to everything I do, because a bad attitude is not going to help me plow through the problems. And then I have to always enhance and advance my skills. You know, one of the learnings I've had in real estate over the years is this. If I want to have financial freedom and I want to be a business owner, I have to be willing to solve problems that most people run away from. That's it. And so if people don't want to hire, the way to become successful in business is to solve the problem of hiring that other people don't want to solve. if the other problem in business, and I'll tell you guys, a huge problem in business is that in order to become a millionaire, let's just say that you need a grade 8 level skill. Okay? You need a grade level 8 skill. And the reality with most small business owners is, frankly, they are in kindergarten. Like, the skill is so low that it would be highly improbable that they would actually succeed, because the skill is so low, it's so juvenile, it's so immature that it does not compete in the marketplace. Like, there's other people with skills in the market, and they have spent years to become good at sales and hiring and marketing and generate leads and raising capital. And they have spent a lot of time and energy. And so if you don't advance your skill to the appropriate level required, the market will not reward you. The market only rewards those that are effective. And so to the degree that the market doesn't even care how much time you've spent, if you have a more natural aptitude, you're more talented, you're more capable, you might advance faster from kindergarten to the grade 8 skill. But the reality is, until you have the grade 8 level skill, you will not have the profits that come with people who have the skill. Profit, to me, is directly correlated with effectiveness. And so effectiveness is about skills, and it's about logistics, and about your ability to get things done. So I think one of the great skills that is missing is, let's just call this follow through. I think it's very intimidating to start a business, but the intimidating part isn't starting a business, it's finishing a business. Like, it's one thing to say, I'm going to start looking at houses. That's a very, very small level of commitment. It's another thing to say, I'm going to call 100 realtors in the next 30 days, and I'm not going to quit until that's done. There's a level of stubbornness that happens in follow through. Like, I'm going to sacrifice most things right now so that I can develop a skill so that in the future, I don't have to sacrifice the same things, and the skill will help me scale my time. So skill helps you scale. So today you might have to sacrifice a month of TV or 2 months of TV so that you can build a skill. And in 60 days from now, once you have a skill, then you have increased your capacity per hour. And now what used to take you 4 hours to do, you now can do in 1 hour. For example, making phone calls and connecting the dots. And now you purchased 3 hours of your time back for the rest of your life. And so it's really important to understand the value of developing skills. One last piece. If you're going to develop skills, you should be able to test them, and you should have the ability or the third-party analysis to say, yeah, you are an 8, or you are a 6, or you are a 3. It's quite difficult to have an opinion of yourself that you have an 8 level skill, but really it's a 4, because you're going to struggle and wonder why you're not succeeding, but you might think you're better than you are. And so I would rather somebody take a more humble approach and say, I'm a 3, maybe you're a 4 in your skill. And I would rather work harder and expect less. That's what's going to be required. But here's the glory. The glory is this. It doesn't really matter if you worked 20 hours a week or 60 hours a week. Once you hit this perspective, and I'm very thankful that I've been able to hit this perspective. Once I hit this perspective and I have this outcome, it didn't really matter if it took 5 years or 25 years. What matters is I hit the goal. Because when you hit the goal, you will develop a tremendous level of confidence in yourself. And you will say things like, I can do anything I put my mind to.
This meeting is being recorded.
I'm very effective. And when you hit these kind of goals for yourself, it kills a lot of your, we'll call it demons, negative self-doubt. Not that you won't have bad days, because you will. But you know that you're an overcomer. And you know you're the kind of person that can persevere, which I think is a very important word. And so to the degree where, whether you have all the tools at your disposal or not, the question becomes, are you the kind of person that will persevere in spite of the tools? Are you the kind of person that will make clear, definitive goals in spite of the fact that it's hard to make a decision? Decisiveness, problem solving, and perseverance are the attributes you're going to need if you want to keep getting better and better, enhancing skills and having outcome. So let's turn our cameras on for a second. And let's get a quick pulse from everybody here. How many of you are in agreement with what I'm talking about here today? Let me get a thumbs up here. All right. How many of you will agree to make a commitment to enhancing your skills and developing an ongoing level of perseverance? Let me see that. Let's get an audio check real quick. Let's unmute. And if you are a person who has made a decision to become a real estate millionaire, say, I will be a millionaire.
I will be a
I will be a millionaire.
Will be a millionaire.
Millionaire.
Come on, your ancestors can't hear you. One more time.
I will
be a
Be a billionaire.
will be a millionaire.
Praise the Lord.
Billionaire.
Voy a ser millonaria.
Somebody was like, I'll be a trillionaire. Easy. Like, okay. Maybe you will. Probably you could be, for sure. I'll be a billionaire. Let's become a millionaire first. You know that millionaire is on the way to billionaire, right? It's on the same road. You guys get that, right? You're probably not going to skip millionaire and go to billionaire. I'll be a quintillionaire. Okay, got it. Right? We're just trying to go to the moon. We're not trying to go to Pluto. If we can get to the moon, it's a good enough view from there, and then we can make other decisions. All right. Somebody who is exhibiting these things and somebody who I believe is taking charge of their own life is our good friend Rianka, who's with us today. And so, Rianka, welcome and welcome. Everybody give it up for Rianka. Can you hear us?
Yes, now I'm unmuted. Hi, everyone. Hi, Ben. How's it going?
Very, very good. Rianka, why do you feel that like you're the one? Like, what is the conviction propelling you forward in your life to become financially successful?
Oh, well, just seeing that if you do the work and you stay consistent, you know, it can be done. Your why just needs to be big enough. You need to listen. You need to be coachable. If you have a mentor, follow through. Yeah, just make sure your why is big enough and have that fire within you. As you mentioned, Ben, there's gonna be bad days. Every day you are meant to have bad days in order to grow. So without those ones, I mean, if it was easy, all of us would be millionaires by now. So yeah, I think that's just what's keeping us going, is just knowing that it can be done. We see the results and we want to make a better life for ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud of all you guys who are showing up every day, making an effort. It's awesome to see my friends like Ophir who are showing up here, Twinkle who are showing up, Sandu who are showing up. Like, I'm proud of you guys. Now, I understand it's not easy, but at the same time, it's valuable. And so this is a great university education that we are getting here together, and we are making progress in our businesses. So on that note, what we're going to do is we're going to switch gears. We have our friend Rianka here. Rianka actually has an awesome story to share with us, what's going on in her business, her life. She also has a new deal opportunity, and she's going to share that with us as well. And for those of you who are in the community, Rianka is a great example of what each of us can do to kind of move this forward in our own business and take action.